On Highway 90 in the small town of Plainville, Texas, at the Cross of Christ Church, the evening of September 5th, 2017, and darkness was slowly falling. It was time to lock up the church doors, and at that moment, a person entered the building. Perhaps a staff member had come to close up, but as soon as they went to lock one of the side rooms, their gaze fell inside. They saw a mattress lying on the floor, and someone was lying on top of it. But when the person approached closer, the hairs on the back of their neck stood up, because there was a corpse in that room. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be the body of a young woman, and her face was completely burned with acid. After that, the person immediately called 911 to report the incident, and then officers from the Plainville Police Department arrived. But when the police saw the disfigured corpse, they immediately understood the difficulty of the case before them. The killer had burned the face with acid, so the victim's identity could not be easily determined. The police also suspected that finding any useful evidence or clues around the body would be extremely challenging. Still, they proceeded with their investigation, carefully searching the area around the corpse. The officers were astonished when they easily found a mobile phone, a Texas ID card, and a student ID card right at the crime scene. From the state ID, they discovered the deceased woman's name was Emily Davis, a 20-year-old resident of Plainville. Emily's name was also printed on the student ID card from Plainville Community College, where she was a junior. With these identifying documents, it seemed clear the body belonged to Emily. The smartphone also appeared to be hers, and her home phone number was saved in the contacts. The police called Emily's house, and her distraught family members answered. Emily had gone to class that morning at 9 a.m. and never returned home. When the police explained that a young woman's body had been found at the church, and they had recovered Emily's ID and phone, her family immediately rushed to the location. When Emily's father, Richard, arrived and saw the body in the side room, he broke down in tears because despite the disfigurement, the clothes and physical details matched his daughter. To prevent identification, the perpetrators had poured acid over Emily's face, literally melting her features beyond recognition. However, based on the evidence found at the scene, the grieving family had to accept that the corpse was their beloved Emily. After the body was officially identified, the police arranged for it to be transported to the county morgue. A murder case for Emily Davis was officially opened, and the police began documenting the crime scene with photographs and evidence collection. The next day, on September 6th, Emily's body was taken in for an autopsy. Afterwards, her remains were released to her family, who made arrangements for her funeral. Richard Davis also provided a formal statement about his daughter's murder to Detective Kate Harris, who was leading the investigation. When a representative from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children arrived in Plainville and learned the gruesome details, she vowed to monitor the case closely. The use of acid to destroy the victim's face elevated this to a crime of particular brutality. The following day, Detective Harris obtained the call records for Emily's mobile device. She discovered that the final call Emily received before her death was from a number belonging to Daniel Richardson, a student at the same community college that Emily attended. But Harris was confused by the extremely long duration of the call, which had lasted over 14,000 seconds, nearly 4 hours. Sensing this was a key lead, Harris and her team immediately went to question Daniel at his home. His parents explained that Daniel was good friends with Emily and would often visit her on campus. However, they were surprised that despite news of Emily's tragic murder, Daniel had not reached out to their family to express condolences or offer support. The police were growing suspicious that Daniel may have been involved in Emily's killing and then took off, so they pressed him harder about his recent whereabouts. Finally, Daniel's parents admitted that he had been missing from home since September 5th after taking nearly $10,000 in cash from their safe. This raised the police's suspicions about Daniel's potential involvement substantially. Through further investigation, the police learned that on the day Emily was murdered, Daniel was accompanied by a young woman named Samantha Lewis. After releasing their photos to the media and offering a cash reward for information, the police launched an all-out manhunt to locate them. However, Samantha's father, Michael, soon arrived at the police station, claiming his daughter was the actual murder victim, not Emily. He argued that the accusations against Samantha's character were completely false and she could never commit such a heinous act. Michael insisted the body at the church was Samantha's, pointing out that the earring and bracelet on the victim belonged to his daughter, not Emily. But the police were not convinced by his story. Despite Michael's pleas, the investigation continued focusing on Daniel as the prime suspect, who had likely gone on the run with an accomplice after Emily's killing. Law enforcement made efforts to track Daniel and Samantha's phone signals, but their devices remained powered off, concealing their locations. Then a break in the case came when their phones were briefly turned on, allowing the signals to be traced to a motel just outside Denver, Colorado. Detective Harris immediately formed a task force, and they raced over 600 miles from Texas to the motel in question. With support from the Denver Police Department, they began a room-to-room search looking for any sign of the two suspects. After hours of combing through the rundown motel, Harris finally got a hit. One of the rooms was rented to guests from the Plainville area named John and Jane Smith, raising suspicions that these were fake identities being used by Daniel and his companion. When the police breached the motel room door, they were met with a shocking sight. Daniel was sitting on the floor, and the young woman with him, believed at first to be Samantha, was actually Emily Davis, alive and unharmed on the bed. This revelation meant the disfigured corpse in the church was Samantha's body all along, not Emily's. After placing Daniel and Emily under arrest and bringing them back to Texas, the truth was finally revealed to Detective Harris's entire team. On that fateful September 5th evening, Daniel had lured his ex-girlfriend Samantha to the church side room by claiming they would be rehearsing lines for an upcoming play. Once inside, he and Emily viciously attacked Samantha, choking her to death before disfiguring her face with acid to obscure her identity. They had used the church mattress to kill Samantha, later dressing her body in Emily's clothes to create the illusion that Emily was the victim. The twisted plot was a scorned lover's scheme to fake Emily's own death, allowing the two of them to start a new life together after running away. Daniel explained that he had used a connection to obtain falsified IDs for him and Emily to use while on the run in Colorado. Both admitted their roles in the cold-blooded murder of Samantha Lewis to the police. In the aftermath, Samantha's body was exhumed for additional forensic testing that confirmed her identity through DNA analysis. Daniel and Emily were appointed public defenders, and their case slowly made its way through the legal system. After a 3-week trial in early 2020, where dozens of witness testimonies were heard, including emotional accounts from the victims' families, the jury returned a shocking verdict. Daniel Richardson was found guilty of first-degree murder, solicitation to commit capital murder, and evidence tampering. He received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Shockingly though, Emily Davis was acquitted of all charges, walking free from the courtroom despite her admitted involvement in the brutal slaying of Samantha Lewis. In a heart-wrenching interview after the trial, Samantha's mother Cynthia expressed her utter disbelief that Emily was not also convicted, saying, "My innocent daughter was killed in such a horrific way by these two monsters. For Emily to be found not guilty is a terrible injustice that I will never truly comprehend. But I hope Daniel spends every day of his natural life behind bars, paying for what he did to my Samantha." This tragic case of a twisted love triangle gone horribly awry serves as a sobering reminder that the human capacity for evil truly knows no bounds. While Daniel received a fitting punishment for his depraved actions, the fact that Emily escaped conviction leaves a lingering sense that full justice was never achieved for the Lewis family and their daughter Samantha, whose life was so cruelly stolen.